Thanks for tuning into the show, everybody. This is Real Estate Insights. I'm your host, Andrew Glisson. If it's Thursday at 5 o'clock on Now Media TV, we're going to have a Real Estate Insights show. So we've got a packed slate of guests for you guys today. We have somebody that has a dynamic coaching program that'll teach you guys how to find real estate deals, single family real estate deals, in a very unique way that I promise you none of the other gurus online are telling you about. We've got an SEO expert. So I know there's a lot of contractors and folks in the construction world that are watching this show, and we're bringing somebody onto the show and introducing you to someone who can organize search engine optimization for you guys in a way that is really pretty dynamic. We also have one of the biggest retail. She calls herself a mom and pop landlord out there, but trust me, $1 billion worth of real estate's no mom and pop. And then we also have a short-term rental complete expert, has a ton of short-term rentals around the country. So lots of cool people and great investors that we're going to bring on the show today. So I got to take a quick commercial break. When I come back, we're going to kick it off with Jen Greene. See you in a second. All right, everybody. Jen Greene's back with us today. Jen, thank you for joining us back on the show. It's been a little bit of time since we've seen you on the show. It's been a little bit of time since we filmed. So you're my first guest in a couple of months. So thanks for hopping on with us today.
Yeah, lucky me. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, look, Jen, I wanted to ask you in terms of your coaching program, which everybody, if you've watched the show before, Jen has a coaching program which is called Great Deals First, and I think it's a great coaching program. It's one of the premier ones that I've seen. There's a lot of programs out there, but Jen's can really kind of help you guys dial in from just a deal perspective. Jen, give us your opinion. It seems like that's the hardest part right now, is finding good deals. And that's what your program is all about. It seems like everybody that I talk to on the acquisition side, the bottleneck in the real estate business right now is deals.
It is deals. And I think there's just been so many ups and downs with just the market and COVID and interest rates that it's been really hard. I think some people are still in that mindset of, 2021 prices, and we're not really there. And so buying on that side is really trying to figure out exactly what it is you need to purchase for, because I've also heard of a lot of mistakes with people starting to get desperate and are just buying to buy and not
Yep.
buying, paying attention to their numbers. So yeah, so what Great Deals First is gets through all of that mess. We're not dealing necessarily with people who are bidding against you. You're not showing up at a property with 15 other people. It's about building a relationship first with people who have influence over who the sellers are, and then getting that like, know, and trust there before you even go on the appointment.
So, Jen, a lot of people spend a lot of money for leads, and if they're running pay-per-click ads or cold calls. So, does your program help people avoid all that? That's a lot of startup expense, to get direct to the seller.
It absolutely is, and don't get me wrong, those things do work, but it takes thousands and thousands of calls, right? And thousands of,
Yep.
tweaks to your marketing to see what's working, what's not working. And this is really about building relationships, not based on cold calls. There is no cold calling. There's no pay per click. It's all about relationships and adding value to those relationships and then having it provide deals for you over and over again. That's honestly what real estate has been about for me for the last, 6, 7 years we've been doing this. It's always been about relationships, whether it's through my Great Deals First program or just getting deals in general. It's always been relationships. And that's what real estate is. And so if you're not taking advantage of that, I think you're really, really missing out of just doing,
Yep.
cold leads.
Jen, is your program geared for somebody who already knows how to spell real estate, or is it geared for people who are brand new in the business? They want a passive income stream or to start flipping properties, but don't know anything about real estate. Do you hold people's hand kind of through the whole process?
Yeah, absolutely. I have some people that have never done one real estate before or a deal in their life, and others who are just looking for a supplemental, stream. And so that's the part of it is if you do the group coaching with me, it's 12 weeks of us meeting over Zoom, talking about, your deals, your issues. I mean, all the things. We even created some supplemental pieces to help people get there even faster, to help them with their marketing. We have something that's called a credibility kit that you take with you on all of your appointments that helps showcase who you are and who your business is. We can also do that for you. So as easy as we can possibly make it, we've come up and just along the way with feedback from my other students of saying what would it be that would help you to get to the deal fastest. And that's what it is. I mean, I'm typically seeing students that are getting deals within 6 weeks or so of starting the program, which
Wow.
typical, outside, it took me 9 months to get my first deal. And
Yep.
that was with any, all of the typical marketing that we're taught. And again, like I said, it's not like it doesn't work. It's just a slow grind. And some people
Yep.
aren't necessarily cut out to do that stuff. And it doesn't have to be that hard.
Some people don't want to sell. I mean, people aren't geared to sell. And so if you're doing some of the other marketing strategies and opening up different deal channels direct to seller, you're selling a lot, right? And people don't like to make those cold calls and it's uncomfortable. So this is a strategy that would suit, a lot of people who don't want to do the cold calls and don't want to, put themselves out there like that, which I think is a great idea. How do you walk somebody through, the actual mechanics of the deal, showing them that it actually is something that's worth pursuing from a cost, renovation and an exit strategy perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing is, and this is something I did early in my career too, is that you go into these properties, with blinders on, right? Being like, oh, I'm here to flip this property. If the numbers don't work, it's not a deal. And the
Yep.
thing is that it can always be a deal. Well, not always, but most of the time, there's something that you can figure out creatively, whether it's, seller financing or wholesaling or whatever flipping. I mean, there's so many buy and holds, rental, like short-term rentals, right? I could go on and
Yep.
on. It all depends on obviously what your business is about. So dialing in and understanding that. And if it's not something you can do, how can you create a deal where you get paid? So is it wholesaling? Is it telling someone else about it? Is it partnering? I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have now is people aren't being creative enough in their solutions when they're looking at a property. And
Yep.
so it's like I
Yep.
said, just those blinders. And so I always try and do every kind of scenario that I can. I usually present somewhere between 3 to 4 options for sellers, and then more or less they get to choose whichever one works best for them. And then everybody wins in that situation.
Man, that sounds great. And so it really just, you've got to look at it. I mean, I think real estate people, you're exactly right. They tend to stay in the same strategy that made them successful. And so they feel like deviating out of that strategy is going to cause them to, they don't know much about it. So they don't feel comfortable doing that. But I think you're right. In this environment, you really have to be flexible in the ultimate exit strategy because not every deal is going to cash flow as well as it did as a long-term rental and so on. So what percentage has your business changed, Jen, in those of your clients in the course, in the mentorship program? Has it changed from, long-term buy and holds to flips? What does the makeup of everybody's portfolio look like now, what they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I've got students that are all over the place. Some are doing, midterm rentals. That's kind of become a hot thing right now, especially by us. We're in Minnesota with the Mayo being not too far away. That's really become a popular thing of midterm, to nurses.
Mhm.
Likewise, also people just sort of moving around in the Midwest for work. And so doing that, that's been a big thing. I mean, short-term rentals are still always popular. However, that market's quite flooded right now too. And obviously
Yep.
with changing laws and city ordinances and things like that, it's been a little bit tougher to do. Flips are always there, but again, you really have to make sure those numbers work because as I was telling you, before we started, it's been raining here a lot. And I mean, that's just slowing everything down. So it's money going every single
Yep.
day to that interest and your payments and taxes and everything. And so really being mindful of what those numbers are. I mean, the safest bet is usually always to wholesale, but you always have to make sure that that person on the back end is going to close. So you better have a good relationship with that person and make sure
Right.
that they're going to close. So we've got people all over the place. Likewise with me. I mean, I'm all over the place too. I've started doing some lot splits also for
Interesting.
builders and different things like that. And so, I mean, that's the cool thing about real estate though, is that there's always so many different possibilities. You just have to open your mind to it and find
Right.
somebody who can take you there, right? And coach you and get you to that point faster. Because sometimes if you don't hop on that train fast enough, you're going to miss it. And then the opportunity is going to be gone.
Mentorship is one of the most important things I think that people don't consider when they start out in real estate, or they think it's too expensive. And one of the most expensive things that you can do is not hire a mentor. It was one of the most expensive things that I did. And probably you too, Jen. I mean, unfortunately, when we started our real estate career, this is 5, 6 years ago, when I really started scaling, there were no mentors. So if you guys are out there watching this, you need to take it from Jen and I, who started when there were no mentors. Had we hired somebody, I tell people all the time, my learning curve, my portfolio would be double what it is now. I'd be so much more successful than I am right now, but nobody was out there. So you guys should really look into this. Jen, how does somebody find your program, and what can they expect to get? So this is a little bit, couple of questions then.
Yeah.
So how does somebody find it, and what can somebody expect to, to have in the program if they sign up?
Sure. So the best way to reach out, we do have a Facebook page. It's just called Great Deals First. A lot of information is on there if you want to just kind of see what we're up to there. Also, there's a website, info.greatdealsfirst.com, and that will take you to a webinar where it's a recorded webinar. But it's me really just talking about the program, how it's going to work, what you're going to get out of it, and you can sign up right away. And also for your guests, or for the people who are watching this, if they go to that they're going to get a code also at the end of that webinar for this specific site so they can get $2,000 off the program. So
Oh,
once
cool.
they do that, yeah. So once they do that, I mean, you have a choice of doing an at-home study. If you feel like you don't need a mentorship, it's me still doing videos. You get 4 pre-recorded videos from me telling you all of the course, all the copy. You're going to get all of the marketing that's there. Literally, you copy it word for word and just input into your CRM. I mean, it's that simple. Likewise, if you feel like you want to get feedback from me, there's also an option of doing group coaching, which is that 12 weeks of online Zoom coaching. You also are a part of our private Facebook group where you can ask questions back and forth, talk to some of the OGs that have been there for a while and get some feedback, do deals together, and just utilize best practices. And then, like I said, there's also some of those options for us to set up your marketing for you, do all of your credibility kit for you. So we just make it as easy as possible. And like I said, working with me, and then you can also continue with coaching, after, if
Yep.
you've felt like that's, okay, great, I got what I needed to, but I want some more. There's always an option for that too. Cause I feel like if you copy somebody, who's doing it the right way, like, you're just going to do better. You don't need to
Yep.
reinvent the wheel, I guess is what I'm
Agreed.
saying. So, I mean, and I was the first one to do this. There's no other programs out there like this that I have seen. And so, and
Mhm.
also, like, other mentors and people have told me that. And so it's like, yeah, it took me a really long time to figure this out and figure out timing and, messaging and all of these things to say, but you've got it all right there at your fingertips. And all you got to do is press a button.
Yep. Rinse, repeat. So, Jen, on the group coaching, I've got like 60 seconds left, but on the
Yeah.
group coaching, do you cap it at a certain level where everybody gets enough time to ask, whatever questions they have, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's 60 minutes. And you know what? Honestly, it's usually people are able to ask questions throughout the week in that private Facebook group. And
Yeah.
so I've never gotten to the point where it's run over. And if people do, like I said, there's opportunities to be able to chat after that. I'm never going to say no to somebody because your success is extremely important to me, and for getting, and obviously proving that the coaching works and that the program works. I'm going to do whatever I can to handhold the folks to get them to
Yep.
success as fast as possible.
Great deals first. Look, everybody, you guys should look up Jen. She's been doing this for a while and is a great mentor. So, Jen, thanks again for joining me on the program. And we're going to head to a commercial break. We'll be right back, everybody. Griselda, welcome back to the show. Thanks everybody again for joining us. Good to be back. Griselda, what I'd like to do, kind of starting off, I've got some questions for you around short-term rentals because you're clearly the guru. But tell the guests, you've obviously been on the show a couple of times, but I'd like for you to kind of tell the guests again, maybe they're new to the show, tuning in, haven't watched you before, kind of, who you are, what your background is, and how you got here as a real estate investor, basically.
Sure, absolutely. So, Griselda, and I am a business advisor and a speaker and coach. That's what I do. Over the years, I've been in corporate America for 29 years. So in doing so, I had to move from different states, literally from California through the middle of the map. And now I reside in Florida. So as I
Yep.
go through, right, and I'm sure others do the same, Andrew, but you purchase property, right? You're in Phoenix, Arizona in 2008,
Yep.
2009. So you bought property there. So basically that's how I got into real estate. It was kind of we needed a place to live, and then I was
Yep.
like buy and hold strategy. And before you
Yeah.
know it, you have multiple properties. But anyway, that's what I do: advising, coaching, and investing in real estate.
So one of the things that you've done, Griselda, is you've accumulated a few properties that are short-term rentals, luxury short-term rentals. And so you've gotten really good at it. You've got some beautiful properties. We actually toured through one, so you should look at a show that we did a couple of months ago with Griselda, where she walked us through one of her luxury short-term rentals. So it's in today's, kind of day and age, 2024, short-term rentals, everybody kind of wants to be in the space. What is a good strategy? What are good strategies, that people want to invest in short-term rentals? What are the factors that people should consider in the strategies to get into that business?
Yeah. So that's one of the investment strategies that I follow, right? The short-term rentals.
Right.
Buy and hold is actually another one that I really like, simply because it's a little bit more passive. There's, you buy it, you hold it. We have some commercial properties and we have some, residential properties. But from a short-term rental perspective, there's definitely need to know exactly what you're getting into from two key standpoints. One of them is your return. What is going to be the return on that investment? It's a big investment, money-wise.
Yep.
So you need to be eyes wide open in terms of what it's going to cost. And not only the initial investment, but then you also need to know, how much you're going to make. What's the profit, right? And there's a lot of hidden expenses. So you need to make sure that you know exactly what my income is going to be, how much I'm going to be making, what's the occupancy rate that's expected, and then how much I need to do to operate it, right? The operating expenses.
Right.
So really need to have a solid, hold on your return on the investment. Now, that's one. The other one is time, right? A lot of people get into like, oh, that's a great idea. My friend did a short-term rental. Don't be, going blind on how much time it really takes. It takes time to maintain it. Maybe you have a property manager that helps. Some people aren't able to get a property manager right away because obviously that, takes up some of your income. But those are the two main things, right? Know your returns. And by that, I mean, know every number that goes in and out, and know exactly, what you need to do from a maintenance standpoint.
Yep. So you mentioned some hidden costs in there, Griselda. What are some of the things that you've uncovered along the way that are some of those hidden costs?
So good question. And I wrote them down actually, just because, I myself get surprised. I'm like, oh, did I capture that? But, all of the, property management fees, if you have those, there's a cleaning fees, of course, there's maintenance and repairs that no one wants things to break, but they will. You're going to have some maintenance in there. Insurance, property taxes, utilities. There's a lot of supplies that you need, obviously, to maintain the home. And don't forget marketing costs. Marketing is a big factor as well. If you're doing, for example, on a short term, if you're hosting it on, Airbnb and VRBO, there's costs that are associated with running on those platforms. And then there's marketing on social media. So whether it's creating videos, but all of those small costs do add up, right? So HOA fees is another one that you need to make. But so there's just make a list and a checklist of every dollar that goes out. That's an expense.
Is there a certain percentage that, a rule of thumb, if I'm going to make $1,000 a month on a property, just to use a very round number, is it 50%? Is that the operating cost, kind of in the market? I guess it could be different in certain locales, but what do you use as a benchmark?
It varies. And so it's really hard to say. depending on the properties in Texas, there's a certain percentage. Florida, it's different. Arizona. So it's really hard, Andrew, to say this is what you should look for. And, it depends, but I would say just do your homework, know the market, know the area. And it's really what it is in that location, plus your risk factor, what you're willing to take on, right? You might think that your occupancy rate is going to be 70%. It might be 50, it might be 60, right? So you need to really know what that area is going for and what the market is telling you.
You said something earlier I thought was really smart. That your time is actually a cost and a factor that goes into decision making and expenses. And there's that's a soft cost, right? There's hard costs that you can budget, and there's soft costs that you really can't budget. But how much is your time worth? And sometimes these investments take a lot more time than you should give it, because if you add all those hours up, you could be investing in something else and making a lot more money. But how do you calculate, Griselda, ROI? And when somebody's looking at a property and they're just trying to run some quick numbers and quick math, how does somebody go through that calculation on a piece of real estate?
So, straightforward, right? ROI for all of us, it's, what's your profit? What's your investment? Divide it and multiply by 100. But what you need to really go through is what I was mentioning from a net profit. What I find is a lot of people either make an error on what they expect the occupancy to be, right? The nightly rate and the occupancy rate. Those are critical factors. So
Yep.
obviously you need to make sure that you know with research and data what those are going to be. The nightly rate, for example. It's nice if you can set as a nightly rate and that's what it is and it's fixed. It doesn't always happen that way, right? So you have to factor that in. You have to factor that variability of the rates, and then you need to do your market research for, vacancies and occupancy. So once you have that, then you have a good firm hold on what the actual profit's going to be.
Yeah.
So
Does a
people
management
say
company help?
I'm sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I was
No,
gonna say, does the management company, is that something that they could, help you with? Is the occupancy that you should achieve and the daily rate?
So it does. And keep in mind that, most people have a property management company, and that does help because it helps you with all of those factors. It gives you the data and it tells you more or less what to expect.
Right.
Keep in mind that some investors are not able to, get started, especially they're getting started and get a property management company right away. As you do that, right, you do know, you do real estate yourself, so you're an expert at this, that if you do hire someone to help you with that, you're going to pay and you have to factor that in. So it eats up into your profit. So it's a matter of what you're willing to do. That's what I'm saying. It's a risk that, you're willing to take. And it's also how much time you're willing to put into it. If obviously the property is located somewhere where you're not presently at, then you need to hire someone to help you in that area, right? You can't get on a flight and get there right away and keep your costs low. It's going to be pretty pricey that way.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what are some of the things, you've been doing this for a while and you've got real estate all over the country. What are some things that could go wrong that, you've seen over your, experience that people ought to be, looking out for if they want to get into the real estate investing world? What are some easy things that you might miss along the way that could, cause you some problems?
Yeah. Some of the things that I've seen some of my, friends and investors do is I can't express how important it is to do that detailed inspection. And I call it a detailed inspection because some people have been bitten before of, we didn't really look into, what was under that slab or what was under, in that wall, or, there's the main inspection points that you do for checking for cracks, termites, things like that.
Right.
But that inspection report is very revealing. And I've actually heard of some people that buy without inspecting. Boggles my mind. I have no idea why anybody
guilty. I've done that before.
Yeah. Yeah. And so maybe it's like an awesome deal that you're okay with losing the 120 grand or 110 grand. But money is money, right? So it's really hard to go in at it. When you're doing that, essentially you're trusting the information was in writing and kind of going at it a little bit blind. So I would say never skip an inspection.
Smart.
Right? And then even when you get the inspection report, just go through and walk it through yourself and make sure that, obviously if you're either flipping homes or renovating or, in the real estate market, you know what to look for.
Yep. And it's also, a negotiating tactic. So inspections, one of the reasons why we were buying houses without inspections was because it was a seller's market. And so there were 5, people just like me that wanted to buy that house. So I couldn't. But now you guys need to realize real estate market is completely different than it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And so it's now a buyer's market in a lot of places around the country. That inspection report is powerful and and you can have some ammo against, that price if you choose to use it that way, if you can, right?
Right. Absolutely. And if you're flipping homes, right? I've had people that are investing and buying a home to renovate and flip it later. And you calculate your cost for renovation, and then you find that it's twice that cost. That's a big deal, right? That's a big deal. And so you really have to factor that in. So
are you seeing
go ahead.
Yeah. Are you seeing insurance rates? That's one of the big things. I was at the IMN conference in Miami a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things that everybody wanted to talk about was insurance rates. And we've got a minute left. Have you seen that impact your portfolio or even your decision-making process in buying new real estate?
So at this point, I have not seen a huge increase in the properties that we have. I have heard that, Andrew, so I'm not going to say entirely no to that. It's just not personally what we're experiencing. And maybe it's, the company that we have.
Good to hear.
But we have commercial properties and residential properties, but not a huge impact. I'm not going to say zero impact, but it's not a huge impact that is making us adjust, right? So, as we adjust, rates in terms of rental rates, it gets covered with that. So I'm not going to say it's huge, but it is obviously something that we have to consider. But we personally are not feeling an impact on the commercial properties that we have, nor on the residential.
Well, that's great to hear. Well, Griselda, thanks again for joining us. It's always awesome to talk to you because you've got so much of a broad experience in the real estate business and all different asset classes, industrial, single family, buy and hold, Airbnb. So always good to have you on the show. We'll have you back on shortly. So appreciate you for coming by, and we're going to jump to a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back, everybody.
Great. Thanks, Andrew.
All right, everybody, got a new guest on the program today, Andrew Zenk. Andrew and I met 2 or 3 months ago, just kind of randomly through social media. And, we were looking for our business for somebody to help us around digital marketing, SEO, and we found Andrew. So what I'd like to tell you guys before, I introduce Andrew and let him kick off and tell you guys more in depth about what he does, is that if you are in the construction business, maybe a contractor, you're in the concrete trade, roofing, whatever that is, it's a beauty contest to get the name of your business at the top of whatever list people find you. For us, in some of our businesses, it's Google. So I want to be ranked at the very top so people can find me, pick up the phone and call me. That's what Andrew does. Andrew gets you to the top. So without further ado, Andrew Zenk, welcome to the program. This is a little bit different, Andrew, by the way. Real Estate Insights, it's all about introducing people to investors, that invest in real estate, or people that own commercial office buildings and things like that. But there's also a lot of contractors, and people that sell services businesses to real estate investors that watch the program too. So welcome to the show. I can't wait to, kind of dialogue with you a little bit about what you're doing. So
thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us, Andrew, how did you get into, the business of SEO and digital marketing? What was the kind of the catalyst that made you realize this was something that, you can make money on?
Yeah. So my first job out of college, I was obviously, a broke college student, had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And so I'm in Texas. And so in Texas, we had a great freeze happen in, I think it was 2020 or 2021. But during that time, I had a family friend who's a GC. And so he basically invited me to work with him. And so I started going around with him, chucking a truck kind of guy, just going around and, helping people turn off their water and fixing freezes and that kind of stuff. And so I realized the way that all these people were getting in touch was organically through referrals. And so I'm like, oh, okay, well, I can, throw together a website and we'll, give it our best shot. And so I did that. And then through constantly trying to improve and then learning more about SEO, like, okay, how do we rank higher on Google? What are the strategies for that? That was really my foray into what I'm doing now, which is working with a lot of home services companies to, obviously get more good homeowners, calling them and through branding, be able to basically have them know you and know your brand before they even call. So that's mainly what got me into SEO. And then what keeps me in SEO is being able to see, the rankings going up and seeing more phone calls come in.
Smart. So Andrew, from a pure cost perspective, a lot of people join Angie's List or some of these lead drip services that, you got to pay $150 for a lead, and you may not even get the deal. You may not even get a job. So what kind of, if somebody would buy into the SEO digital marketing strategy that you're selling folks, what could the expectation be on a cost per lead that you're not fighting with other people for? Like once you get it really kind of synced in and you're in kind of a groove, what does that look like from a cost perspective?
Yeah. So I'm the first one who's going to talk smack about Angie because I just do not like them as a company. I don't think they're very honest. But what publicly traded company is. So as far as it goes with SEO, the long term, it is a very long-term game. If you set up your site correctly and you follow the right steps to ranking it and building backlinks and all that other stuff, basically as you do that, it becomes, it's a flywheel effect, right? So it'll keep adding on itself. And it's hard to qualify what is the cost per lead because, you know, depending on how big the website is, you know, if you're running like a national roofing brand, your cost per lead is going to be relatively lower because
Right.
you're just in so many, and you know, the branding and all that kind of stuff plays on itself.
Right. So how does somebody that's in a construction business contractor, you know, we're in this world, what are some of the things that they do to make their brand memorable? What do you kind of guide people? How do you start and kind of create a brand?
Yeah. So I think there's so many easy wins, like even just a simple web. Like I've seen people who go on Fiverr and get like a $200 website, and it's, you know, it's not bad. You know, it's certainly
Yeah.
not going to be, you know, first page of Google worthy, but um, those little things, like just the $100 here and there that you invest into it, is a really good starting point. And then, you know, like no typos on your website, all that goes
Yeah.
a long way towards making sure that, you know, each lead that comes in, they see you, they know you, they have a good idea of your story, and they're just ready to buy.
Yep. Do you suggest just in, you know, marketing practices, is it good to wrap your trucks? Do you need your name on the side of the truck? Do you need all these flashy graphics, things like that?
So a lot of that really depends on what business it is. Like plumbers, you kind of can't do it without that.
Yeah.
I personally don't mind that much, but you know, I've been in the trade, so I know, like, okay, it's not really that big of a I don't think it's that big of a deal. You know, everyone has their own opinions, of course, but
Yeah.
I personally have never really minded whether or not they do. I think, you know, having a good website and having a good, you know, a lot of ways for your target audience to opt in, that's really what you need to be looking for, because
Right.
everything else is, you know, everything else is well and dandy, but if they don't have a way of like calling you or submitting a form, there's no way for them to get in contact, and you're just
Right.
losing all that business.
Right, right. Or you make a phone call like I've done in the past and nobody's on the other side. Nobody picks up, or you even leave a message with
Right. I
somebody, they
mean,
don't ever
yeah,
call you
that's
back. I mean, how does that happen?
yeah,
You know?
exactly. And that's the one, it's just solid business practice of like, okay, do you answer the phone? Do you show up on time? Like all these super easy things to do that
Yeah.
you don't have to have any more money than anyone else. You just have to be more responsive and try to, you know, try
Yeah.
to do better than your competition. And, you know, it's the 80-20 rule, where if you do you know, I don't know, the exact rule is separate, but if you're doing 20% of what 80% of your competition isn't doing, you're going to be so far ahead.
Yeah. So speaking of which, like plumbers, for example, you picked on plumbers a minute ago. If a plumber comes to you and says, "Look, we really don't want the toilet jobs. You know, we don't want to go do the $100, you know, repairs. What all we want to do are sewer jobs. That's all we want to do. We want to replace sewer pipes. We're good at it. We're the best at it. We're faster than anybody else." Is there a way in the digital marketing SEO world to just focus on that target consumer, or do you have to just sell whoever's just looking for plumbing?
It kind of depends. I'm more of a fan of, okay, well, let's at least get the traffic for it, so then maybe you can set up some kind of separate service division or whatever else. But in our onboarding process, we ask everyone, like, okay, what services do you really want to focus on? What services are you the best at? Which are the most profitable? And then which ones you like just want to stick clear entirely? Like, we're not even going to mention that you do it. If someone calls and
Yep.
asks, that's not because of us. um, or, you know, you can set up a microsite like, you know, sewer drainage Dallas, or whatever it is. You know, there, you can make it a little niche thing by its own little website, or you can just brand, and if you want to incorporate that into the main brand or not.
Yep. So this is not the SEO process is not a get rich quick process either, right? So
No.
talk us through the timeline on what that looks like and what people
Yeah,
can
get rich
expect.
slow.
Yeah.
So the timeline, typically you start to see you see some rankings about 3 to 4 months in is a good somewhat gauge of whether or not, your strategy has been successful. And then past that, 6 months to a year is when you're really going to start to see, okay, do we need to change something? Or like, is this just a matter of Google? And then, because it's Google, I mean, Google, the whole SEO industry is just how can we, look better to Google than anyone else. And so you're always at the mercy of core algorithm updates where they'll change however you're ranking for some keyword for some reason. So recently we had a lot, well, I don't want to get into too much of the tinfoil hat stuff, but when Reddit went public, all of a sudden you see them start to rank for basically everything. So all that being said, it's definitely a example of how corporations can use their influence to I'm not I don't want to go too far down that.
No, I get it. It is true. I mean, pay to play sometimes, right? Why would somebody, Andrew, why would somebody choose, and I don't know the method behind the madness. I mean, what you're talking about a lot of times in the SEO digital marketing world, you and I have been on the phone a number of times about this, is complete Chinese. I don't understand it for the life of me. So this is not a loaded question, but why would somebody choose an Andrew Zenk to run their SEO instead of a, GoDaddy, who's got, millions of people that are focused on this every day?
Yeah. So obviously ours is way more client focused. We have our templates, but that's outside of, like, okay, here's what GoDaddy and those other websites will do is they'll either provide you a builder or they'll build it themselves. And I mean, they're not bad, but again, they're not going to rank that high whenever you're trying to whenever you're really going for the kill, as far as some of these super competitive terms like, concrete or anything like that, is just, it's way more competitive, and you need to have some specialized view basically of what, basically how can this specialization benefit me as a business owner. And then, you get to take advantage of that just with good marketing and good practices. And when the phone calls start coming in, it's a little bit at first and then all at once. I think is the saying.
You got to be prepared for it.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew, I've just run out of time, but I could keep asking you, more questions. So we'll have you back on the show, sometime soon. But how do our guests that are watching, our viewers, I guess, how do they find you if they want to learn more about this and engage you? How do they look you up?
Yeah, so the easiest, and it's funny because I don't even do SEO for my own brand, but the easiest
You'll need to.
is to go to zas.direct. That's a website, and then on there, there's a little Calendly widget that they can schedule some time with me. Or you can send me an email. My email is Andrew, ANDREW, @zas.llc, and I'd be glad to answer any queries that anyone has.
Yeah. And it looks like I'm looking on the screen right there, Andrew_Zenk on Instagram. So there you have it. Well, Andrew, thanks for joining me, man. Really enjoyed having you on the show, and we'll have you again soon.
Likewise. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. We've got Dr. Ishnella Azad back on the show. It's been a while since we've seen each other, Dr. Azad, so thanks for coming back on the show. You've got a lot going on. Dr. Azad was just telling me right before we went on air that there is a lot of money being raised in her world, and she's getting ready and has deployed it on some new assets. So it sounds like you're right in the middle of making acquisitions in a very challenging market.
Yes, we've been growing phenomenally. The last deal we did was closed on February 9. That was bought from the Teachers Fund of America. It's a property called Fayette Pavilion. It is the largest outdoor retail shopping center in the state of Georgia. It's the busiest and most visited. It's 1.1 million square feet on 106 acres. It was the largest retail shopping center deal done in the United States in the last 3 years.
Good for you. That is a very solid, group of stats you just dropped on us. So congrats
Thank
on
you.
that. In that world, Dr. Azad, in the shopping center retail world, in multifamily and single family, management is key, right? Effective management. I mean, talking to tenants and residents every single day, solving problems. Is it as intense? Is it as, challenging in the retail world?
Yes, that's actually kind of how I started. I believe that when I created this company, I needed to learn it from the inside out. I did every single job. One of that was being the sole property manager for about 1.5, 2 million square feet,
Wow.
learning from the ground up and asking lots and lots of questions from every vendor I interacted with. Property management is the key to real estate, no matter what kind of real estate you're in, no matter what asset class you're in. If you do not have good relationships with your tenants, who are the end all and be all, we get money from them, but we serve them. We are
Yeah.
a servant to them to make sure that they make money, that their American dream continues and thrives and flourishes, that we keep them long term, that it is far cheaper to keep a tenant and have bump ups every, say, 3% so every year, as opposed to a brand new tenant and risk vacancy and risk financial
100%.
loss, and it affects your net operating income, and the valuation of that asset, whatever you're in, is based upon the net operating you're bringing in. So the more thorough property management you do meets the needs of the tenants, make sure that they stay in that environment, which raises your net operating income, which raises the value of your property, which raises your equity value, and raises the cost at which you can sell that property and get out.
Right. Well said. What are some of the challenges in the retail world from a property management perspective?
So you have real estate is a different set of games. When we first started out, we were in the older property game where property management was simply about going out and getting collections, making sure your accounts receivable, accounts payable, and that is part of it, because the property manager is the person who goes out there, has the individual relationship with the tenant, and you're dealing with more relationship-based stresses. You have more tenants that don't pay. You have more evictions. You have more legal proceedings. So it's not only about the maintenance of the property, which you do less of in an older property, because the properties are not about maintaining the value, because the area is going down in value. So it's about pulling out cash from the property, so higher returns from an investor perspective, and maintaining the property enough for tenant continuation. In the mid-level real estate game, you are buying Class A, Class B properties, and it's about age of property. In the mid-level range where property is, say, 10 to about 22 years old, think of it as being a middle-aged person. You start to have more wear and tear on the body, you start to have more health issues, and you go to the doctor more often, and you do more maintenance, right? So property is the exact same way. You're going to have more wear and tear on the property. So your capital expense items go through the roof. Your average roof, a roofing system, TPO 60 millimeters, it's going to run you millions of dollars. And that's going to hit you year 18 to about year 23. In your asphalt or your concrete parking lots, that's the second major capital expense. That's going to be, say, $1.5 to $2 million. Now, all of these are CapEx expenses that hit a property manager. So you've got your electrical, your plumbing, your lighting, your turnover tenants, your tenant improvement, and your build outs. Every Best Buy has to look like the same Best Buy. You know, your leasing commissions, you have to monitor your tenants paying and get all your day-to-day stuff done. But the stresses of property management in your mid-sized property, where it's 200,000 square feet to, say, 400,000 or 500,000 square feet, and it's Class A to Class B, meaning it's 10 to about 25 years old, is those CapEx. Because you have to either park enough money, $5 to $7 million when you buy the asset, accounting for that, or you got to do cash calls on your investors, and you have to get your typical third-party property manager gets 3 bids on everything. Well, those are so expensive that you end up going 4 or 5 bids, and you are still spending so much money that as an owner, you don't have enough cash to do it in one fell swoop, typically.
Yep.
As a property manager, you've got to arrange it and meter it out, and you do it in a triage format, in that you don't want to spend more money than you want to spend good money after bad, so to speak. So we track so the 2 most expensive things is roofing and parking lots.
Yep.
Roofing, we have to track per the tenant space. You want to keep a roof leak law. All roofs leak. I can put a brand new $5 million roof on a property. It's still going to leak.
Really?
Because it's just so big. And it's adhered to each other through seams everywhere. That is glue, right? It's epoxy and glue.
Right.
And if you're in the Southeast, weather matters, because the heat expands, contracts, expands, contracts. So there, the roof may not last 18 to 23 years. It'll last 16 to 20 years. So if you're in that Class A, Class B, mid-level property, you're going to get hit with that. So I can't do 1.1 million square feet, but I can do 100,000 at a time. And that allows me to amortize the cost over time. It allows me to make sure that my tenants who pay triple net, meaning they pay their portion pro rata of common area maintenance, their portion area of the insurance, the taxes, and all of the general costs of that property. So I can get them to be able to cover, especially my small mom and pop tenants. CAMs, or common area maintenance, is a lot of money percentage-wise for them. So I want to be able to meter that out as a property manager over time, so it's affordable for them. Because my competition as a property manager is every other shop around me. And the way I attract more tenants than other properties down the road is my common area maintenance. And I control that specifically as a property manager, because if I can keep the cost down in each of the major categories, then my addition, the additive effect upon base rent, that common area maintenance, is lower. And so overall rent per month is lower. This is controlled by property management. So I can be competitive in the market to the property down the road for me. So I don't want to waste too much money on making leak repair after leak repair and leak repair, in Bob's, Boudin shop. So I'll track. I've been like, okay, there's been 7 repairs here. I'll track if one roofing company, their repairs last longer than another. I'll track the material goods between the roofing costs. So it lets me know who to pick as a property manager. It lets me know how often I've deployed in that square footage. And at a certain point, I'm like, okay, a brand new roof would be $2,000, but I've spent $750 on the leaks. At a certain point, screw to heck with that. Time to put on a new roof. So as a property manager, you're in charge of accounts receivables, rent coming in.
Right.
You've got to make sure that rent comes in, because I don't have that profit, and the property manager is responsible, because that profit margin is what allows me as a property manager to have the wherewithal to make more repairs on the property. So I've got to stay in budget of what I allocate each year. And then I've got to track as a property manager the variance, meaning am I above budget, below budget? You hope you're maintaining the quality of the asset and that you're keeping up with repairs. It looks good, good curb appeal, it's repaired well. You've got the receiving of the money that you're supposed to get, so that you have more money to make the repairs and keep up with it. You've got to make sure that your tenants are paying every month. So you've got to be on top of accounts receivables, accounts payables. You got to make sure your vendors are happy. You got to make sure. So property management is the
It's a hard job
and soul of real estate. It is everything. And I liken it to, and it helps to be ADD, because you have like 1,000 spinning plates all at the same time as a property manager. So that's kind of how it plays in. Property management.
So there you go. So it doesn't sound like it's any easier on the retail side or commercial side than it is in residential. It's all hands on deck all the time, regardless of the asset class.
And you better hope that you have some ADD and OCD you can do a lot of things and be really precise and pay attention to the details.
Well, I'm convinced you have to have a little bit of ADD to be in the real estate business. It's just part
absolutely.
of it. There's too many moving pieces not to. So, well, Dr. Azad, we've run out of our 12 minutes, unbelievably. I mean, it just zips right on by. So really appreciate you coming on board. We've got you scheduled, booked, back to back for a number of episodes. So look forward to, those conversations. And everybody, this is the end of our show today. So we appreciate you guys tuning in, joining us, all of our guests. I hope you got a lot out of the different conversations today. As always, thanks for tuning in. We're here on Now Media TV every Thursday at 5 o'clock. Appreciate you guys joining us. You can catch us on social media. You can follow me at Andrew.Glisson on Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. If you want to be on the show, you've got something to add in the real estate world. If you want to, hear from different people about different topics, your feedback matters to us. We consider it. And thanks again. So we'll see you guys next week, everybody.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.